Welcome to Coffee with Kay, where we're going to make sure the coffee is always served strong, but it's also going to come with a side of truth, and that's truth with a capital T. The truth of God, that is. I'm here to equip and encourage you, Saint. Yep, that's right, you. And if you're not familiar with the sainthood, I want to teach you what it is, and I want to invite you to the family. So, let's get right into it.
Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race for you. Monday, happy days. Tuesday, happy days. Monday, happy days. Tuesday, happy days.
Welcome back to Coffee with Kay. It has been a while since we've gotten to hang out virtually via podcasting. I believe my last episode came out in March. My apologies for the delay. It has been quite the season, and we'll talk about that another time. But today, while I've got a little bit of free time to myself, I thought that this would be a great opportunity to preach on another subject of my season on motherhood, and I wanted this season to be something that was kind of fun-filled, not so serious, not so shoved down your throaty, and also something that you probably haven't heard before from other platforms potentially. And so today I am on my first solo trip, I think ever, since getting married and having children, where I'm by myself in solitude in another part of the country that I love with an abundance of free time. And I don't know what to do with myself. And I thought this is a great opportunity. I've been wanting to podcast for months and months and months, and I usually don't have the time, nor do I have the quiet for it, nor do I even have an idea of what I'm going to say or what I'm going to talk about. And so I'm really glad that I have this opportunity today to chat with you guys about motherhood and free time. And I'm also going to be working on some solo episodes as I get my podcast going again and keeping them brief. I've noticed when I've gotten to listen to some of my favorite podcasts, the briefer the better. I really enjoy that. And so I'm going to be implementing that here too. So I'm going to keep it brief. I want to start out by saying motherhood and free time is something that I really had to practice at. I think when it comes to my free time, as I looked back on my motherhood journey, being 6-7 years in, I really regret some of the ways that I spent my free time 7 years ago. Even when I was just pregnant, I had a really tough pregnancy with my pretty much all three of my kids, but especially my first. I have always had really bad morning sickness, and it lasts beyond the first trimester. I'm usually morning sick with my boys until about 20, 25, 30 weeks. But with my girl pregnancy, I was morning sick until the day I gave birth. So that first pregnancy, that morning sickness threw me for such a loop. And I had gone from being super physically active and exercising almost every day to suddenly just being on the couch. Just I couldn't move. And I remember in that season of life, my husband had gone back to school and I had a lot of alone time. And so when I wasn't taking my dog to the dog park, our puppy at the time, I remember I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy. And we also learned that I had been struggling with depression, and we didn't have a name for it. And so not just from the pregnancy fatigue, I was also struggling deeply with depression, and we didn't know that. And so I realized looking back that the way I spent my time really reflected my internal struggle. I always wish I had done things a lot differently. I had bought, a really beautiful manual camera after I graduated college, and I always wish that with that free time I had started a photography business, because that would have been an opportune time to do that versus once I had kids. I had an abundance of time at my fingertips, and we had like no money. So I couldn't, go out to the coffee shops. I couldn't go, do a lot of extracurricular activities. We couldn't afford it. And I always let that be my crux. But now looking back, I realized I could have been at the library. I could have been, taking free business classes. I could have been taking, free art classes, or like I said, starting a little photography business so I could, snowball money to do other extracurricular things. We were living in Dallas at the time, and we always felt like we couldn't really be the socialites we wanted to be because we couldn't afford it. But I also realized I was wasting a lot of my precious time in front of the television. And so when my baby came, we were no longer living in Dallas, and we were back in our old city in Denton. I was back around my friends again, our old church. And so luckily I was spending more of my free time with other people in my life. We were taking our babies to the park, but I also vividly remember with my first baby, I felt really attached to my phone. I really feel like I wasted so much time scrolling during those late night nursing hours. Our baby didn't sleep very well, and so I remember being up at night, and I just remember spending a lot of time on my phone. And I still was watching like Grey's Anatomy, and honestly, guys, that show is trash. I say that having watched I don't even know how many seasons of it, but it's trash. There's nothing good that like it gives to your soul. And I'm just gonna be point blank. Um and Not judgmental. Like I said, I wasted so much of my life watching that silly show, and I do regret it. There's so much more I could have been pouring into my soul that would have been uplifting and edifying and helping me grow my character, versus having to do all this backpedaling now. I do remember with my first baby, I did read a lot of parenting books, and I'm really grateful for that because I learned a lot, and I really feel like it put me kind of a step ahead of other peers, in regards to like discipline and child rearing. I really felt like I had a lot to learn and a little bit of time. And so I do always feel proud of at least that. But by my second baby, at this point now, I have a 1 year old, and I'm pregnant, and I'm going through the morning sickness again. And that was so hard. And with that free time, we had moved to our new city out in East Texas, and I immediately got plugged in. We got plugged into a church, plugged into a small group, plugged into serving. So I also joined Young Lives with my first baby. He was, let's see, probably a good 5 or 6 months old, I think, when we joined Young Lives. And at first it was just him and I. So I started mentoring teen moms, and that's kind of when I started stepping out and realizing, yeah, I have a lot of time and I need to use it wisely. So I started serving in Young Lives with teen moms, and that's like once a week. And then, you engage with your mentee at least once a week. And my mentee, and I engaged a lot. She even lived with us at a point. And so I was, usually bringing her to therapy once a week, or like dropping her off at work or something. And then, let's see, I also was doing a women's ministry with Middle Eastern immigrants in our city. And so we would host a ladies' tea with them, and most of them were Muslim. And so it was just an opportunity for us to get to break down those walls and minister to them through friendship. Some people call that friendship evangelism. We called it undercover ministry. And like sharing the gospel through our friendships, through our tea times, because that was how their culture communicated. And so just getting to come to a new place where they could convene around other Islamic and Arab women, and speak their own languages and embrace their own culture, even if it was just for an hour and a half on a Saturday morning. And then sometimes they would like teach us little lessons about their culture, about their country. And then we would also do that. I remember one time we made like potpourri mix, like stove top potpourri mix. And I loved that. And so I would also be tasked to visit with with my lady I was partnered with. Her name was Miriam. Um, and like see her outside of our tea gatherings. And so that was another way I started spending my time. And that's when I really started snowballing my time being used for impact. I felt so convicted about my screen time, y'all, because I realized that there's so much more to the world than Netflix. And I did not ever want to fall into that ever again. And I saw the impact that surveying had on me and my soul and my character, and being able to broaden my views of the world, but also the impact it had on others. And I was hooked. And it was also beautiful when I got to do that with my friends, when my friends joined ministry with me. That was always something that was really special to me, and something that I really try. And I feel like I'm always trying to get my friends now to participate with me. If anything, maybe that's my love language, is accepting my invites. If you guys are listening, now you know. So come to my parties. I'm just kidding. Um, or join my book clubs. But yeah, so with that second baby, I ended up joining a perspectives class. So it's like a seminary class that usually any town with a church, an established church, usually hosts a perspective class. So it's called Christian Perspectives of the World Movement, I think, like that, something like that. But basically, it's a class about being a missionary, and it teaches you the history of missions and the like, not themes of missions, but kind of like the how to and how not to. And you do a lot of reading. And so I was like, well, I'm in a new city. I know nobody. Um, we were getting out of debt, and we had sold my car to save cash for a new car. And so for a period of time, we only had one car. So I was at home with my 1 year old, pregnant, morning sick. And so we had a really tight routine: breakfast, clean up, go in the playroom, right before lunch, watch an episode of Barney. And I would do my perspectives homework while he was in the playroom. And then we'd go take a nap together. And by the time we woke up from a nap, we'd go for a walk. And then it was time to start making dinner. And dad would get home. And then, maybe we had small group, or maybe we had young lives, or we would just be hanging out. And so I felt like I had a better grasp on my time. Even though I was still struggling with morning sickness, even though I had a 1 year old, I did not want to backslide. I read a lot of books, because that pregnancy, we finally started using a midwife. And so she had a library of natural birth resources, and I was just consuming them like Skittles. It was so helpful, and I have really fond memories of all the time I spent reading, like Ina May's and Birth Catcher by Peggy. I can't think of her last name. Anywho, I really learned a lot in that season. And when she was a newborn, yeah, I had a 1 year old still. And at 6 weeks, I started swim coaching with a high school, because I felt like I had an abundance of time and we needed some money. And so when she was 6 weeks old, I started working, which was so crazy to me then and now looking back. She was such a good sleeper that I really felt like this is like, I can wake up early. I was up at like 4 something to get to the pool for our 5:30 workouts. But I felt like I had the energy and the capacity, and it was before the kids woke up. So by the time I got home, it was maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. And so the day was just getting started, and I could take care of them and, take naps with them. So I was still doing Young Lives. I was still doing small groups, still going to church. I would have friends over for coffee visits. And then that year, we hosted a foreign exchange student in our rental house. And that was really cool. That was such a great experience. Still started reading a lot of books. That's when I started challenging myself to like yearly reading challenges and really getting back into reading and trying to read like 12 books a year. Now I'm pretty sure I read like 12 books a season. And really, yeah, I'm trying to even remember what shows. I think I was watching Call the Midwife back then. But that's when we really started getting convicted about TV time. And we really felt convicted to be hospitable. I read The Gospel Comes with a House Key that year. That was 2019. This was right before COVID. And it changed my life. I wanted to be outrageously hospitable, and we were still getting out of debt back then, so we didn't have a ton of resources, but we had a really cute, spacious rental house. And so we started gathering, and that was the year that we started our chili cook-off, and we just had our fifth one a couple weekends back. And it was such a great time, and realizing like we love to host and we want to have people over. And so I would usually just keep, a can of cinnamon rolls in my fridge and make sure I always had coffee and tea. And that's still something that I implement now. And we now also have like a little mini fridge that we keep really fun, drinks and sparkling waters in, for spontaneous entertainment. Because we just love getting to have our friends over and just be comfortable, feel welcome, feel warm and cozy, and just be in a safe place, and using our time for that. So now 2020, we have the shutdown, and we had an abundance of free time. So that year, my husband and I listened to the podcast. Let me think. How does the podcast go? Fight, Hustle, Unhurry, right? Because I know the book is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry and To Hell with the Hustle. So I think, yeah, Fight, Hustle, Unhurry podcast was those two authors coming together. And it's a brief podcast. There's maybe only 8 episodes. And I think maybe my sister-in-law told us about it. And it changed our lives, markedly changed our lives for the good forever. And so even though it was COVID, we still felt so convicted to embrace the idea of living an unhurried life. So our neighbors at the time were our landlords. We were living in a barn dominium in a garage condo at this point now. We moved because we wanted to finish paying off debt and finish, getting my husband through grad school. And so this place was really affordable. And even though it was COVID, we had a huge backyard. And so we kept inviting people over. We would have hangouts outside. We started a home church because all the churches weren't meeting. And we felt so convicted that there was no reason to not meet and gather like the scripture commands us to. And so we had a little home church outside. We bought a coffee pot off Facebook because, again, as Rosaria Butterfield taught me, always have a pot of coffee and a Dutch oven of soup ready to feed the masses. It's affordable, it's cheap, it's quick. And we wanted to be able to, again, just be a place where people could come and gather and feel safe and feel like they could be known and be cared about. So then this time I had 2 toddlers, still doing a lot of reading, and it would be after 2020, going into 2021, that we would finally get rid of our television. And once we did that, my free time exploded. So we lived in a camper for a brief time. We flipped it. It was when we just bought our land, and our plan was to flip a camper, live in it until our house was ready. And we hit all these snags, and that's a story for another time again. But we got rid of our televisions when we moved into that camper in 2021. And that is also when everything completely changed. Yes, we still do screen time, We have, a laptop and an iPad, but our kids, they are only allowed to watch a movie on Saturdays. Saturday is their movie day, or now, we're in Pokemon phase age. So we'll let our oldest watch however many Pokemon episodes is equivalent to one princess movie, which is, for anybody who wants to know, approximately 7 Pokemon episodes fit into Frozen 1. So just fun fact for you. And on Fridays, we homeschool, and I let them watch 2 episodes of the old PBS Kids show, Cyber Chase. It's a little math show. And so on Fridays, they're allowed to watch Cyber Chase after we finish our homeschool lessons. And then, my husband and I, sometimes we've been watching Downton Abbey for the past year. I think we're on season 4. And, once in a while we'll watch it before bed. And once in a while we'll watch a movie together as like an at-home date night. And this fall I started Gilmore Girls for the first time because I always heard about it and I wanted to know what the hype was. So I usually watch it when I'm washing dishes after dinner. I'll put it on the iPad and put my AirPods in and clean the entire kitchen and listen to Gilmore Girls. But other than that, y'all, I don't watch television. In all honesty, I really don't, unless I'm sick. That's pretty much the only time you'll catch me watching a show in the daytime is if I'm sick. And even then, I can only handle so many movies before I just want to turn it off and go outside. So my free time as a mommy is not something that I idolize anymore. It was something that I used to idolize because I always felt like I didn't have enough of it. I realized, though, 6 years into this journey that as a stay-at-home mom, I'm not working anymore. I also have episodes about that, about being a mommy and working and why I came home and my jobs that I've had as a parent. And now I don't work. I do a little bit of network marketing on the side and blogging when I can in this podcast, but the majority of my time is now spent as a homemaker and now an educator. And I really like to reserve my time to serve and volunteer and have time with my friends and exercise, and that is enough. I don't have much capacity to do anything beyond that, honestly. So I realized that it wasn't that I did not have enough free time. It was that I didn't have the discipline to use my free time wisely. And I had to overcome a lot of regret and repentance and forgiveness to myself and to the Lord for how I used to spend my time, because I wasn't working to do what my husband and I call moving the kingdom dial. It was a little term we coined when we listened to the Fight, Hustle, and Hurry podcast, that we want to be choosing things. We want to be saying yes to things in our lives, independently and together, that are going to move the kingdom dial, bringing heaven to earth, right? That is what we're doing as Christians when we go out and spread the gospel and share the love of Christ to others, waiting for the kingdom to come again, because the kingdom is going to come and God is going to reveal and renew this earth. He's going to reveal himself to everyone. Every knee shall bow and tongue confess that Jesus is king. And he's also going to renew the world. He's going to bring heaven to earth. Jerusalem is, Zion is going to come down again. Heaven is going to come back down to earth like it was in the beginning. And so we want to be a part of that great commission. We want to move the kingdom dial. And you cannot do that in front of the television. You can't. You cannot do that scrolling social media, even though you might follow wonderful Christian people who are shedding light. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. And I say that too because my most recent endeavor is getting off social media. So starting in October, I felt that I needed to get off social media. And I go on Pinterest I like to look up ideas on Pinterest, and but I don't spend a lot of time on that. And I'm not really on Facebook. I usually use it for Marketplace, but I don't scroll Facebook. That hasn't been a temptation for me in like a decade. I don't like Facebook. Um, and I don't TikTok really. I have a TikTok. I don't get TikTok. I don't like it. So I'm really not tempted to use it. It's Instagram is my vice. I love Instagram. Instagram loves me. The algorithm knows my heart way too well. And I started this book called Influenced by what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. He's a doctor. He's a plastic surgeon, and he's on TikTok. And he wrote this book about the impact of social media. And I found it at the library 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, thanks God, I needed this. How'd you know?" And so now I've really been doing like a deep dive into the impacts social media have on our brain, because I know it cannot be good. Now that I've been off of it for like 6 weeks, I don't have this like tremendous anxiety or like feeling of being liked or disliked or whatever. Like I just feel like a person, a normal person again. And so next to not having a television, y'all, I highly recommend trying to get off social media for like 6 months, 4 months. See what happens. I'm telling you, it's going to change you. Not everybody needs to know every little piece of your life. You can, but we've gotten so accustomed to making it about us and like glorifying ourselves through it. And I've realized once I took a step back and got off how just like unhealthy it is. And I'm going to speak more about that on another episode, especially once I finish this book, because I'm really feeling so convicted about social media, you guys. I'm really been trying to contemplate how and if I'm going to come back online once my social media fast is over, because I have experienced such freedom and clarity being off of it. And I don't feel like that's something that, is just so personal. That's like, well, that's good for you, but not for me. No. Like, even scientifically, it's good for all of us to be off of it. Like, our brains are not meant to do this. And if you really stop and think about it, it's an experiment. This is the first time in the history of ever that we've had this abundance of technology. Nobody knows how this is going to affect us long term because we haven't been doing it long enough. And so I think it's so important to stop and just ponder and consider and do a deep, deep inventory of how this is affecting me, how this is affecting my family. I have a lot of friends that ask, how do you have so much time to read? And I'm not making this up. And I am like, well, I don't have a television. And, even looking at I have this app on my phone called Well Spent. Highly recommend it. So it tracks your time spent on your phone, and it will put up blocks that are meant to like disrupt your attention and have better results getting off of your phone. And so, like literally, I'm looking at my my phone usage, and regularly I get about 3 hours and 50 minutes on my phone. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 4 hours. And it's usually like I'm looking, it says messaging is what I spend 45 minutes on, and then Google Maps, it takes an account to that. And I'm still trying to get it under that. Like I feel like 4 hours is still too much to not be scrolling, right? That's a lot of time. And that just felt so convicting. And I just felt so like such a deep desire to change and to be a good example to my kids and to myself in that way, and do my brain some good, right? And so, yes, we have a lot of free time as moms. If you're a working mom listening to this, I know that your time is different. And I'm sorry I can't completely speak to that, because when I did have jobs, when I was in the workforce, I was doing it as an entrepreneur And then, like I said, as a swim coach, where I was working early mornings, part time, and I didn't really have like work to do during the day that kept me from doing stuff at home and cleaning and visiting and hosting. As an entrepreneur, that's when things got busier, like with my candle shop. Um, that did take a lot of time. So my time did look different. And then with our cleaning company, even though I really tried to set it up in a way where I was being able to protect my time, you know what? I forget. I always forget about my brief stint with Young Life. That was really hard. I was part time, but everybody knows in ministry there's no such thing as part time. Um, and so that was really hard. My kids were in parents' day out and stuff, and I kept the baby with me for work. But yeah, my time was a lot more limited when it came to reading, free reading, and like any extracurriculars. So it's been really nice not working, and that I've spoken about that before. I have a little series on Instagram about celebrating failure. For a long time, I felt like because I stopped working, I was a failure, and now I realize that that was such a blessing, and I'm thankful to not work anymore. I'm thankful to have free time, but that is something that every couple has to decide for themselves, and you have to make sacrifices too, if that is something that you want to pursue. So, um, yeah, now pretty much my days I try to work out daily, um, because also I have motherhood and fitness episode that I recorded with Jibwa in December. So yeah, definitely go back and listen to that episode. But fitness is something that I also feel very strongly like that every mother should implement into their life. It's what's going to keep us healthy. It's what's going to allow us to continue having children, and being able to keep up with said children and then grandchildren, and living long, healthy lives. And I think that physical fitness is so important. Mental health, mental wellness. I'm about to do an episode about motherhood and depression where I'll dig in more into motherhood and mental health awareness in that episode, but making time for that is at the top of my totem pole. Like I said, I'm homeschooling now, and I have to make that a priority. And it really only takes us about an hour and a half every. We do it 4 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thursday we have a co-op that my oldest goes to, and then the littles and I take off and run errands or go have fun that day. But yeah, I'm educating my kids now, so that is really important for me to spend time on. And then we do have commitments for serving our community once a week, and so we have to make time for that, and going to church. So, those are some really top priority things, but I mean, that's kind of it. And so beyond that, it's just maintaining our house and our homestead now, like taking care of our animals. And I have a little garden, but we really, really try to live life in a way that gives us a plethora of margin. It gives us room for error. If we're running late, if something gets canceled last minute, or if we get invited to something last minute, we want to be yes men. We want to be able to say, oh, you need help, we'll be there. Oh, you want to hang out, we'll be there. So we structure our lives ever since reading that book. So I highly recommend the Fight, Hustle, and Hurry podcast and the two books, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry and To Hell with the Hustle. And I also highly recommend The Gospel Comes with a House Key, because those three books changed my life forever. It convicted daylights out of me, and it also gave me so many tangible ways to start making forward progress to turning the kingdom dial forward. And it's only one notch at a time. That's also what my husband and I say. It's 1% at a time, 1% at a time. These little habits and these little changes, they move the kingdom dial one notch at a time. And that's all God needs from us. That's all he wants to see, is that we're making forward progress. So if any of this has resonated with you, if you've ever felt like, how do you have so much time? I don't have a maid. I don't have somebody teaching my kids lessons. I don't have my parents here. My husband, luckily, we've structured our company in a way that we've been trying to work him out of his position more. So he does have a lot more time home than the average family. And that has been the biggest blessing. But we did not have that for a very long time. I always felt like I was a solo parent until about 2 years ago. And if you are an entrepreneur out there or have a husband who's an entrepreneur, you know what I'm talking about. Running your own business is no joke. It's not a 9 to 5. It is putting out fires 24/7. It is a lot of work, and we've sacrificed a lot of our time to get our company off the ground. But now we're finally at a point where we can scale back our time and responsibilities and automate stuff and divvy out, afford help. And so I do have my husband's help more than I used to in the past, but that's it. We have a babysitter that can come for date night, and sometimes she has time to help us. Another hack that I always recommend if you're needing a little extra help, like a mother's helper, and I'm only speaking to this season. In the past, we did have housekeeping that came every other week, or my mother's helper came like twice a week during the day when I had my cleaning company, so I could go meet with clients or like meet with my manager. But in this season, and for the most seasons of my life, I didn't have that. And at this season, I don't particularly want that either. I really enjoy being with my kids, really enjoy being home. And that was not always something I could say for a lot of my motherhood journey. But my free time is not something I covet anymore because I feel like I have an abundance of it and I have enough of it that I can choose how to use it well. And I think that's always something that made me feel like I didn't have enough free time, was because I wasn't using it wisely, or I was taking jobs that I probably shouldn't have taken. And so that stress and tension I felt was kind of something that I did to myself. And so, yeah, I hope that this episode is helpful, is tangible, is something that lets you just think and ponder. And, I always recommend a good old pro-con list to just kind of identify if this is a good decision, if there's better decisions that can be made with the time that you have. And I have the priced library on my Amazon storefront. So if you want to know some more of the books that I have, go there. I definitely have more that are not on that storefront that I need to add. And then in my latest newsletter, I was going to share what books I'm reading right now, and I realized I forgot to share the books. I didn't put the picture in. So if you haven't, go to my website, www.wildlyrootedministry.org. And then a little pop-up will pop up on your screen asking you to subscribe to the newsletter. So subscribe there, and that will put you on my now monthly newsletter that I have picked back up. And in this next newsletter, you will get to see said picture of what books I've been reading. And I look forward to sharing them because they've been so good. They've been so fun. And yeah, if you love to read, then look forward to that on the newsletter. But also with that said, I am really, really looking forward to growing said newsletter. Like I said, I'm pondering with this abundance of free time that I now have, if I even want to go back on social media, or if I do, how I'm going to use that. And so as I'm fleshing that out, I've realized I enjoy emailing. I've been encouraging people to send me an email versus a DM, and I've really been enjoying that. It feels like I have a pen pal. It feels so much more personable and like it's meant to be a way to communicate with people in more than quick 30-second bursts. So email me. I check them, I look at them, I respond to them. I really like emailing. Join my newsletter. If you don't have time to read my blog or listen to my podcast, I'm really trying to make that newsletter a quick little hit where you still get to take away something. You're not, feeding into the Instagram algorithm dopamine rush. You're actually getting to just sit and read something like a magazine, like back in the day. So yeah, please subscribe to the email list. That is one of the best ways now to communicate with me, and hopefully I want to keep that way going forward, because I want to protect your free time. I want to do for you what I do for myself. I feel so convicted. I'm telling you guys about social media and podcasting that I don't want to have these podcasts as just one more thing to listen to. I want to come here if I've got something important enough to say, to take your precious time, because your time is precious. It's the one thing we can never get back is our time. So it's so important that we use it wisely. And this time is just a blip. It's such a blip. Eternity, like the Bible says, like one day to us is 1,000 years to God. And so our life is going to pass us by, and we don't know the day or the hour that our time is up or that the Lord's going to return. And so it's up to us to be so diligent with stewarding our time wisely. And I want to make sure I'm doing that with the resources I'm providing. So I really hope that this episode was encouraging to you guys. If anybody has read those books, send me an email. Let's talk about it. I want to read them again. They are good books to read yearly, and I haven't read them in a while. And so, yeah, if you've read them, send me an email. Let's talk about them. And I will talk to you again soon.
There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. Goodbye, gray sky, hello, blue. There's nothing can hold me. There's nothing can hold me. Goodbye, gray sky, hello, blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. Goodbye, gray sky, hello,